The US has issued a list of countries that could suffer from its sanctions on Tehran. China, the biggest buyer of Iranian oil, tops that list. Earlier, Washington said it was exempting 10 EU states and Japan from the sanctions that would block access to America's banking system. Let's discuss this now with financial expert Francis Lun, joining us live in Hong Kong. Good to see you today. So China did cut imports of Iranian oil by 45% last month. That's the lowest level in 2 years.
Yeah.
Why is it still under threat?
Yeah. Well, I think the U.S. has a prejudicial foreign policy in that for its allies like Japan and the EU, it's a one set of rules. For other countries like China, which is not on such friendly terms with the U.S., not on the U.S. side in the Syrian question, then it's another set of rules. So even though China reduced its purchase of Iranian oil by almost half, so they still bring the sanctions on China. This will create a huge diplomatic spat between China and the U.S.
Well, you say this will create a huge diplomatic spat between China and the U.S., but what about the economic impact? Are the U.S. sanctions really going to deal a big blow to China?
Not really, because when you look at the Chinese banks, except for Bank of China, which is the specialized foreign exchange bank, so Bank of China has branches all over the world. But the other big banks like Industrial Commerce Bank, China Construction Bank, and Agricultural Bank of China, they are not really strong internationally. They are basically domestic banks. So if you're vetting sanctions with them, the U.S. dollar business only counts for a tiny fraction of the business, so that it will not bite. But for Bank of China, it's a different story. I think something like 30% of the assets are in foreign currency. That will help. That will hurt a little bit.
But surely Washington, D.C. would have known that by creating these oil sanctions on Iran, it would have affected China, being the biggest #1 consumer of Iranian oil. Some might say, is it possibly a chance of getting two birds with one stone? America puts pressure on Iran, inadvertently and perhaps knowingly puts economic pressure on China, one of the growing world superpowers.
Yeah, definitely. This is the best way to go forward, because this is the U.S. dictating the foreign policy, the global agenda for everybody else. Either you're with me or against me. So this is really what U.S. diplomatic policy is all about. I think they will apply it prejudicially, and if you're not on their side, you suffer.
Now, one Iranian lawmaker has said that the decision to make exemptions from the sanctions, for example, 10 EU countries have now been put in a position where they are exempt from the sanctions. But one Iranian lawmaker says that shows the U.S. is in retreat. Do you possibly see it that way?
Not really, because last month, Iran already, before the EU imposed sanctions on Iran already imposed an oil embargo to EU states. So I don't think this is a retreat of a U.S. policy. I think it's just that they want to help the EU states, because some of the EU states are still depending on Iranian oil. They have to give them more time to switch the purchase of oil from other countries like Saudi Arabia.
All right, financial expert Francis Lun there, joining us live on the program from Hong Kong. Thanks very much for coming on RT today.